using the management server, you also can manage the server administration of the remote solid server. Okay? Yeah. So here is the administration page. Now, to do server administration, to manage the server, configure, for example, configure the server, configure solid server IP address, right? Configure the IP address, configure the management IP, configure the network service IP, configure NTP, right? Yeah, configure, perform backup, right? Yeah. So if you want to do server administration, configure the server, yeah, you can go to the admin page. To access the admin page, in the sidebar, you just have to keep scrolling down until you see a gear sign. So when you click on the gear icon, they bring you to the admin home. So this is the administration page. So which is the admin home? Here you will be able to configure the system. Configure the network, configure the services, configure date and time, configure license, configure authentication, user authentication, collecting the log, view the log. All these are all the server log, system log, right? Yeah, audit log, everything's are here. Perform maintenance, reboot the server, shut down the server, right? Backup, configure, restore, right? So these are all the server administration under the admin page. Is it okay? Right? Now, so here is to show you another faster way for you to configure the network. For example, if you go to the admin home, you can configure network here, network configuration. Right? But another faster way for you to configure the network, if you log in as IPM admin, under general information, you see that there's an IP address here, the management IP address. If you want to modify the IP address of the server, you can click here also. So if you go and click here, they will bring you to the network configuration, right? And you will be able to configure the IP here. The IP here, this one, management LAN. So you can click on the management LAN, right? Yeah, and then you will be able to change the IP address. If you click on the host name, you will be able to change the host name. Right? Yeah. Right? Now, also, in order to access the different services, you can see these are icon here, service. So if you want to configure, if you want to disable the service, you can click on this also. Enable, disable, right? Or if not, you can always go to the admin home, select admin home, select services. So once you select the services, you will be able to configure all the different services here. Like for example, configure the SSH, configure the server certificate, configure NTP, right? You can also configure TFTP server. You can use Solid Server as a TFTP server or SFTP server. See? So you can configure DNS server, DHCP server, whether you want to enable, disable them. Actually, the configuration is more on enable, disable. So if you don't want the DHCP to be, if you do not want the Solid Server to provide DHCP service, you can come here and disable it. They only provide DNS because this is a DNS server. Okay? Yeah. You can enable multiple network service. You can enable multiple. Right? Okay, yeah. So this is to show you can configure the NTP server on the Solid Server. Right? So that it's important that you set the NTP server so that the time can be synced. So that the Solid Server have a proper time. If you want to do centralized management, if you want to have centralized management using the management server to manage the remote DNS server, make sure their time are in sync. Make sure their time are in sync. So the best way to ensure all the solid server time are in sync is to use NTP time service. So configure the NTP server, right? So that the solid server will use the NTP server for time synchronization. Okay? Yeah. So that is one of the important things for initial setup. You can access the command line. You can also go to the command line of the solid server using SSH. So you're going to type in the management IP address of a solid server from a PuTTY. After that, you can connect. When you log in, take note the login is not IPM admin. IPM admin is for the web interface. For SSH is a separate user account. So SSH, the default user account is admin, password admin by default. So you have user account for the web interface. You have other user account for SSH. So the default SSH user account is admin. The password is admin. So once you log in as admin, you will see the menu. Then from the menu, you will be able to configure the server. You can configure the network. You can configure backup restore. You can do shutdown restart, right? Or you can go to the tools for you to set the time zone, or for you to go to the system shell. See, so power management is for you to reboot and shut down, right? If you go to the tools, you can go to the system shell. You can configure the time zone. You can go to factory reset, right? So if you go to the shell, they bring you to the command line. Then you can use the Linux command. Okay, that right? As I mentioned, we don't really configure anything on the command line. Everything is done from a GUI. Okay, that right? Yeah, so this is a command line. You can use a Linux command. You will use the shell for troubleshooting, for managing the log, troubleshooting. Okay, yeah. Now, centralized management. So for centralized management, as I mentioned, from a management server, you can remotely administer the remote solid server. In terms of performing, configure the network on the remote solid server, configure the network IP address, the default gateway, the subnet mask, right? Configure the different services, perform remote upgrade. So the centralized management server will be able to remotely upgrade the remote server, right? View the server statistic from a centralized location, right? Perform restore, collecting log, display log. So from a centralized management server, you will be able to see the log on the remote server, right? And configure the license remotely. So if you add the remote server to be centralized, managed by the centralized management server, you see, so you will be able to manage all these things remotely from the centralized, from the management server. So over here, there are 4 solid servers. 1 management server, 2 DNS, 1 DHCP. Okay, yeah. So you can manage everything from a centralized server. So yeah, to do that, first of all, you go to the management server, you go to the admin home. So this will be the admin page of the centralized management server. You go to centralized management, either here or here is the same. Then from here, in the centralized management server, you will be able to add the remote DHCPs. You will be able to add the remote solid server, right, into the management server. And you can now manage them from the management server. Okay. Now, before you can add other solid server to the management server for remote management, you must assign the IP address to be used for the management server to communicate with the remote server. So you must assign one of the IP address of the management server, right? To connect to the remote server so that they will be able to manage it remotely. Or so that the management server will be able to manage them remotely. Is it okay? So you have to pick IP address. Normally we use the management IP. So you can see, so in this management server, you use the management IP to communicate with the management IP of the remote solid server. So you need to pick the IP because a solid server can have multiple IP address. One IP for management, or maybe multiple IP for management, and IP for DNS. See? Yeah, so you have IP address for the DNS service, you have an IP address for management. So right, so you have to pick one of the IP address on the management server to use to communicate with the remote server. Right? So to do that, when you go to the centralized management, right, of the management server, then you can see currently the management server is local, yes, and currently there's no IP address. So it means that without IP address, they won't be able to remotely manage other solid server. It won't be. So in order for you to choose the IP address, in order for you to choose the IP address on the management server to talk to the remote solid server, you have to go to the toolbar, you have to go to the tool menu, and then you select configure local solid server. Okay, yeah, so this is on the management server. Yeah, so you know that this is the management server, and currently this is a local, you are on the local management server. You're going to actually configure the local management server from the tool menu. Then you're going to choose IP address. So this is the IP address that is already configured on the management server. Right? So this is under the network configuration. You already configure the management IP address on the management server. So now you're going to pick that IP address so that you will use this network to communicate with other remote solid server. So once you pick the IP address, that's it, you click on OK. So now you can see they have an IP address now. Previously, no IP, none. None means cannot manage anything. So I must assign the IP address, right? Yeah. Or you must choose the IP address, or choose from the existing IP address of the solid server. Are you clear? So once you have the IP address and the status is okay, now you can add the remote solid server so that you can manage it from the management server. So you enter the IP address of the remote solid server. So this is the management IP address of the remote solid server, right? And then the admin password. Remember the admin password for SSH? Yeah, make sure you enter the admin password. It's not the IPM admin password, it's the SSH admin password. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So make sure you enter that. Oh, by default it's admin. You can enter admin. If not, if you change it, make sure you enter the right one. Okay? Okay, good. After that, you can see the remote server. I believe the remote server is DNS, NS1, NS2. They are not local. See? Yeah. These are the management IP address you have add. You add in one by one, okay? Not everything auto discover, no auto discover. The remote server must be added one by one. Are you clear with that? And then you can see the status manage remote. They should not have any time drift, as I mentioned. Make sure all the server, the time is synchronized with, the time is the same as a management server. The time must be the same. So that it can be remotely managed. So that's why you must configure NTP first to synchronize the time before you configure centralized management. Okay, right? So no time drift, important. So see, everything at 0 means the time are synchronized. Fine. So once you have done this, now if you go to the network configuration on the management server, so I'm on the management server, network configuration, I can pick the management server to configure its network, or I can pick NS1 to configure its network, or I can pick NS2 to configure the network. See, I can do server administration from a management server. Okay, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So basically, this is just for your information. If you look into the status under centralized management, if you see the status timeout means it lost connectivity. It lost connectivity to the remote server. So that is the timeout, reachability. Understand? The system state is to basically this is monitoring the CPU memory usage, disk usage. So the system state is actually about the CPU, memory, and also the disk of the remote server, of the remote solid server. You will learn more about this if you go to the advanced configuration. But anyway, this is just a general understanding. The status show the connectivity. The status show connectivity status. The system state show the system resource. CPU usage, whether it's okay, memory usage, is it okay, disk usage, is it okay, right? So they will show you different error message if one of these if one of these are having problem. Okay. Okay, good. So give a try. So give a try on this so that you can do a centralized management. So you're going to configure Solid Server 1 as a management server, and you're going to manage Solid Server 2. So you have two Solid Server. So you have Solid Server 1, Solid Server 2 in the lab, right? So you're going to configure Solid Server 1 to centralize manage Solid Server 2. So you can try that. And also, you're going to try out the lab for the admin page. See, command line, and then only you do the centralized management. Fine. So same thing. I will give you 15 minutes. Right, and then we start again at 2:16, 2:16. Okay. Then Jakarta will be. Where is my slide?